Right, yes, I know I am late to this, but Italian heavies have basically been announced on Friday, and I personally can't be happier. I knew they were coming, and I said in one of my videos earlier this month, or in September, that they would be announced shortly, and they were. So I'm glad that was right, because, well, I wanted them to come and I've been waiting for them for the whole year. Anyways, today we're going to be going into everything you need to know so far about these Italian heavy tanks. And before I get into this video, I just want to say 70% of you all are watching and not subscribed to the channel, and if you enjoy and want to see World of Tanks videos that are a little bit behind the other people who do World of Tanks videos, feel free to like and subscribe. I also do some other unique World of Tanks content on the channel as well. Anyways, let's get right into Italian heavies, and I'm sorry for being late. Right, let's get right into the tier 7, shall we? The tier 7 branches from the tier 6 P43 bis. Starting the line of Italian heavy tanks, this is the Carro d'Assalto P88. The tank is essentially an elongated version of the P43, but it has its own unique features that make this a better vehicle than the P43. And of course, it's a heavy tank, it's more heavily armoured, and it's faster than the P43 as well. Firstly, this tank has two gun choices. Both of these are good punchy guns, but these are cyclical loading guns rather than the auto reloading guns. The tier 7 does not have access to any auto reloading guns, just like the tier 7 in the medium tank line doesn't. The Canon .88-47 is the first gun of the two, or the one that is likely to be the first one, mainly because it lacks on penetration but it fires more shots in a minute. The gun does 240 average damage, 164 average penetration, and fires 8 shells per minute. The gun's rate of fire is actually fairly decent, but it lacks on penetration, meaning it won't be that strong at tier 7 unless you are in the top tier. But if you are bottom tier, you will be pretty much helpless with this gun. The next gun is the one that sacrifices rate of fire for an extra 38mm of penetration. The Canon .90-62 is the next gun. The average damage is the same, being 240, but the penetration on average is 202mm, which is a huge advantage, especially when you're up against tier 9 tanks. The rate of fire, however, is 6.9 seconds, so you sacrifice 1.1 shells a minute. What makes this tier 7 tank really good is that its penetration is really high on its top gun. That 202mm is better than most tier 7 heavy tanks. It's better than the Black Princes, being 171. It's better than the 45 TPs, 192. It's better than the T29s, 198. And it's better than the KV3's 175. There are other tanks which it is probably better than, but I haven't looked at this yet. But it does show a common theme when we get further into the line, that these tanks are comfortable with their penetration and gun handling statistics. This tank is actually a fairly decent tank. It's also quite fast because it's a light tank or a medium tank that was converted to a heavy. The only issue is this tank is longer, and therefore it's got a bigger silhouette or a bigger profile from the side, which makes you fairly vulnerable. Up next in the line, we have the tier 8, which is the Progetto CC55 Mod 54. This is where the more modern looking Italian heavy tanks start coming into play. Anyways, when it comes to characteristics, the tank is actually a little faster than the tier 7 by the looks of it, and its hull armor is really good, but it's similar to the American tanks because it's inspired by them. It does look like there are quite a few similarities with the frontal hull shape of the Pershing and the Progetto CC55. But anyways, the top gun is the 105mm Canon .105-71. This is the tank's first auto reloading gun for the Italian heavy tank line, and it's a decent gun. Being able to work with 360 HP of average damage and 220 average penetration, this means you are on par with most other tier 8 heavy tanks. I've got an example here with the 110, the 53 TP, the AMX 5100, IS3 and T32, as well as the ML1. Essentially, when it comes to damage, it is pretty much better than most of these tanks, apart from the 53 TP and the IS3. It's on par with the ML1 but beats the T32 and the 110. Penetration is better than the 110, the 53 TP. On par with the IS3, better than the T32, and better than the ML1. This only leaves the AMX 5100 that it's better than. However, this tank, of course, has the auto-reloading gun, which means you can fire 3 shells in pretty much quick succession if you have a fully reloaded drum, which means it pretty much negates the fact of the damage being less than the cylindrical gun loaders. Anyways, let's actually get into this new auto-reloading gun mechanic. So, this new line has a special auto-reloading gun mechanic which is a lot better than the current one in the game, which instead of cancelling out the reload of the second shell when you fire, it cancels it, but it also halves it if you do it in the last 2 seconds of the reload. This means it will halve the next shell's reload as well, which I think is fairly decent and is a good way to negate the fact that you've just cancelled your reload. This allows you to work in a cyclical firing mode quite effectively and a lot better than the Italian medium tanks that are in the game. In fact, the reload for each shell is 16 seconds for the first, 13 for the second, and 11 for the final one. Each of these will halve as you fire within the last 2 seconds and you get the auto reloading special ability. This puts a very competitive edge to the Italian heavy tanks and makes them probably one of the more OP and meta friendly tanks in the game. If you thought the Italian medium tanks when they first came out were OP, these tanks will be absolutely incredible. The tier 9 is the Progetto C50, coming in at tier 9 in the tech tree. By the way, I just want to say, in this video I will not talk about the tier 8 premium because I feel like that deserves its own video, because I feel like there's a lot to talk about for it. And well, anyways, let's get into the tier 9. I'm not gonna lie, when I talk about the gun on this tank sounds absolutely incredible. Just the actual sound of the gun itself rather than the stats. Just give a listen to this.
6 has all the features of a mobile heavy tank.
I think that sounds amazing. So this tank is pretty much a heavium, and it's the same as the tier 10 tank as well, because the tier 10 is pretty much a heavium. This is a mix between the standard heavy tanks in game and of course the Italian medium tanks that are fast and have really punchy guns. These are fast, have punchy guns and good armor. These are all around the new meta-friendly tanks. You thought the Polish heavies were meta-friendly, these bump it up a tier by the looks of it. This tank is very similar to the likes of the WZ-111-5A and the IS-7, mainly because of the good high speed, frontal hull armor and very generous gun dynamic. The C50, however, does have a 120mm auto reloading gun that sets it apart. This is the 120mm Canon da 120-62, which has average damage of 400 and average penetration of 268. And when we're talking about tanks in comparison, the penetration is really good, being that 268 penetration gives you leverage above the Polish 50 TP with its 250, the AMX 50-120 with its 257, the ML2 with its 252, the M103 with its 257, and the Object 257 with its 248mm of penetration. And that 400 HP of damage is pretty bang on average, so it's very similar to the AMX 50-120, but you got to remember, like the 120, this has a drum system, or it's got the Italian auto reloading mechanic, which means those 400 HP of damage compared to the big boomstick of the 50 TP can easily be negated if you fire 2 shots in quick succession, or even 3 in quick succession, because either way you'll be reloading for a similar time as the 50 TP after the 50 TP does 1 shot and reloads for 15.3 seconds. You'll be reloading for 17 seconds. So if you manage to get a whole clip into him and then reload your next shell for 17 seconds, you can do very well in a competitive game. The Rinocerote is the tier 10 in this tech tree, and I am shocked with this one being the tier 10. It also has a fully HD model already, so I'm pretty sure it will be coming into the game soon, and that by I mean very soon, because all they need to do is get the HD model for the tier 9 and 8 and then they're sorted. As for the tank stats, this tank is a very fast heavy tank and is a tank that is very competitive comparative to fast medium tanks, which, like the Tier 9, this puts it in a really good position, being able to rush up to the front line with medium tanks and assist them, but you have more armor. The tank's gun is a very strong gun, being it the Otto Melara 127mm gun, a gun that has a lot of people theorized would come to the game, one that I thought would come to the game on a tank dubbed the Otto Melara, something I covered in a fan-made Italian heavy tank line. This gun does 490 HP of damage per shot with average penetration of 268mm, which is actually fairly decent. That 268mm is better than the IS-7, the Kranwagen, the AMX-50B, the 60TP, the T110E5 and the 113. The 490 HP of average damage is also really good because apart from the boomstick on the 60TP, it's better than the Kranwagen, the AMX-50B, the T110E5 and the 113 in this comparison. The IS-7 is on par with it but has significantly lower penetration values. This means if you were able to bin out your full clip, you could have a clip potential of 1470 HP of damage in 45 seconds, which means you could probably do about 1800 damage in a minute. However, with the cyclical playstyle, and if you put the playstyle in a careful manner, you could definitely get up to 2000 damage per minute with this gun. Now, when it comes to the Italian heavy tank line, I actually have to go out there and say these are very strong tanks. The Tier 8 Premium is in its own kettle of fish and is a tank that I'll be covering in its own video because it's essentially a bull in a china shop when you think about how OP that tank looks for Tier 8 games. Anyways, I also have a video in preparation about the full change log for update 1.10. So I'm not sure when I'm going to get that up because I don't want to do 3 World of Tanks videos in a week, rather than mixing it up like I normally do with my channel. Anyways, what do you guys think about these tanks? I think this line is balanced, but they are very, very strong and will bump up the meta a little bit when they come out. Personally, I have no clue where most of these vehicles came from. Wargaming could have used realistic tanks that were actually in the game, like the Leone, that was in real life and made by Italy, but they decided to go with something different. I'm not complaining, I just want to know where these tanks are from and if they're made up. Nevertheless, I'm pretty excited for this line, and I think it will be coming out around Christmas times because the Tier 8 will then be put into Christmas loot boxes, and we all know Wargaming love an opportunity to make their players gamble. Anyways guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you do enjoy this video, feel free to like and subscribe. I'm sorry for being 4 days late to this. I know everyone else has covered it. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you all in the next one. Have a great day.